Wait, please.
If the literature that exists is different from the slant of your dissertation, then would the method be different? Or do you have to use what already exists?
I think inevitably you find yourself using or building on what exists already. So it's very, very, very unlikely that what you do is going to be completely different. Now, I said already, I've not completely ruled that out. There might be occasional exceptions. And if you think that's the case, then bounce your ideas off the tutor. None of us want to stand here or anywhere else and say, you must do it this way. Right? It's your piece of work, not ours. But what we are here is to guide you, because we've been through this process, quite a long time ago, but more recently in terms of writing articles. We've also seen a number of students go through this process. So we don't want to dictate, which is why it says they're typical. And if you think a better structure is appropriate, bounce those ideas around. Maybe justify it. Yes? So don't rule it out, but don't assume also that you know best. Be a bit flexible, discuss, work it out between you.
Mark.
Yeah.
I guess in justifying what you want to do, I think the guy Bastille 2000 said that no one approach is the best approach to doing any dissertation. He said you need to find the one that suits the research method that you want to do. Now, in my case, when I started writing my dissertation, I was looking at qualitative and quantitative, only to find out that the research that I am doing only required qualitative, and I had to readjust my whole structure.
Right, but that's then following, isn't it, from your research question and from what you found in terms of how other people have approached it.
Yes.
So that's what you usually find, agreed. So just 1 second, yeah. There's also an idea which is quite prevalent in kind of research method type articles, that a combination of quantitative and qualitative is somehow better. All right? And again, what I say, in some circumstances that might be true. But again, it depends on the nature of your project. And in the context of your dissertation, or indeed some article that I was going to write, there isn't a requirement that you do both of those. All right? It depends on what you want to do, partly what you're comfortable with, but also, what else has been done in this area. So, even though increasingly, in things textbooks and things of that nature, it might say, I think it's called triangularization or something like that. There you go. All right? This is the best. It still depends. Depends on what you want to do. Okay.
How do tutors, lecturers view a question that might be slightly different but similar to something that you would have seen before?
Then I think, without going into the specifics at this point, that would probably make a very good dissertation. So one of the phrases I was going to use, if it's not on a slide, is a variation on a theme. So that goes back to my notion of, a different industry or a different country. All right, so build upon what other people have done. And usually that makes a very good dissertation. You have something to build upon, but you're also doing, to quote one of the earlier slides, some original research, because you're using it in a different context. Right, forgotten where I am now. Okay, so maybe this partly sums up what I've said already. Okay, so starting point, before you get to proposal, before you get to the big thing, the dissertation, is deciding upon a topic. And again, this can be quite daunting for some people, but again, it's something that we think you actually need to go through. It's part of the learning process. So all the way up to this stage, we've sort of said, here's your assignment question, answer it please. Here towards the end, once hopefully you've learned quite a lot, is your chance to say, well, I want to set up my own question. Hopefully you have some ideas from the material you've read in the context of your different modules. You've also got an idea of what it is you're particularly interested in. So, are you particularly interested in marketing or finance or human resources? So you've got some idea, of what your particular, the particular area, you want to look at. What you probably haven't got, though you may have some ideas initially, is that idea of a research question. So, think through that notion of maybe I want to focus on a particular industry. So I want to look at marketing topic, but I want to focus on a particular industry. Or I want to focus on a particular country. Think a bit more about which specific marketing topics interested you. So was it, consumer behavior? Was it maybe something you read on customer satisfaction or lack of customer satisfaction? So gradually think through what you've covered, and narrow it a little bit.
But is that not, I don't want to say contradictory, but you need a topic that is too way that you can't research neither. You want a topic that is within an area that you can research that is not weight.
Yeah, but we assume, it may not be true for everybody, but we assume we start off with kind of some general notion, and what we're gradually trying to do is to narrow it down until it becomes a doable project. Now, it may start from the opposite, and you're starting at the bottom and saying, well, how do I turn it into research? But quite often, it's the more sort of general areas that people are interested in, and then what they're saying is, well, how do I turn that into, something that would make a dissertation for university? And you do need to narrow it down a little bit to do that. But after that, what you should be able to do is to look at the literature, to see what other people have done. And I think that's then when you really do narrow it down, and hopefully you can come up with that notion of a research questions or a kind of set of research questions that you can answer in the context of your dissertation. And here, for me, the crucial bit. So once you have some initial ideas, but it can't be just marketing or it can't be just finance, it needs to narrow down a little bit. Once you have some initial ideas, make use of the resources that are available. Particularly the various online databases that the university subscribes to. Again, I don't want to be prescriptive, but the one that I find most useful is EBSCO Business Source Premier. And when I have students come onto the Blackboard and say, I'm thinking about doing a topic in this area, the first thing that I say to them, use EBSCO, find out what other people have written, okay? And what you're looking for there are journal articles that actually publish some original research. So a few starting ideas might come from some textbooks or from the module study books. But what you're trying to do is to go into more depth and undertake a research project. You're not going to find out how to do that by looking at the study books for the different modules, nor by looking at textbooks. All you might find in a textbook is that much that says someone undertook this research. Well, that might be a starting point, but then use EBSCO to find that article. So you get a much better idea of what they did and the way in which they did it. So that, for me, is key. It's key to everything that comes subsequently. And every time I'm involved in any research, that's where I start. Let's see what other people have done. That literature will say, well, I did this for this country. You might think, well, I can do it for my country. Well, they did it for this industry. I can do it for my industry. It will also show you exactly how they did it. And as I say, you can look at it and say, yeah, I understand that. I reckon I can do something similar. Or you look at it and think, I don't understand a word of that. Right, I'm not going to do it that way. let's go back on again and see someone had done it a different way. So the whole thing, for me, starts at this point, once you've generated some initial ideas. And it might be an iterative process. So you come up with an idea, you look at some of the literature, you think, all right, let's think about it differently. Maybe, again, I've seen students do this, a different topic, because they've got 3 or 4 ideas to start with. But again, do a literature search, see what other people have done, see if you can do something similar. Right, okay, so I think this maybe I'm not getting the question quite right, but come back to me. If you find some existing material and they've actually used a survey, let's say from 10 years ago, then it's perfectly acceptable to use exactly the same survey. All right? And you find that in lots of different areas, in the marketing area, in the finance area, and so on. There's no problem with that whatsoever. What you can then do, as I said, in various different ways, is to make a comparison. All right? What you can also do is look in detail at the results that come back from your survey. If it's a kind of standard questionnaire, then quite often people use some sort of statistical approach, which might take you into the realms of kind of statistical significance. But it may be that the set of questions are more of a qualitative nature. Again, that approach is not ruled out at all. And again, it doesn't stop you making that comparison. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. All right, any other questions? Okay, so key, it strikes me, is what has been written already. And that is in terms of not only your proposal, not only formulating your initial ideas, but subsequently in terms of writing the dissertation, because a substantive chunk of that dissertation will be that notion of a literature review. So you're not wasting your time again by doing the proposal. It's the starting point for that bigger document that comes along later, that notion of the dissertation itself, that notion of the 15,000 words. Okay, don't want to say anything about this. No, I think I've probably said it already, haven't I? So, reasons perhaps, or more reasons, why we're asking you to produce that proposal. There, it suggests that you think about this, but if you give us the proposal, then it allows us to reflect on it as well, and to say, well, yes, we think you do have sufficient resources. You explained as to where you're getting the material from. Yes, we do think you can do it within the time available. Yep, question?
If once you get into the research, can you change your proposal if you find that it's leading you in a different direction?
Right, okay. I think this is, again, the notion of interacting with the tutor. So you come up with an initial idea, you do a bit of reading, that idea will inevitably change a bit, and that's not a problem at all. Hopefully, if that interaction takes place, then the proposal you put together, the one you submit, will be doable because you've had that interaction with the tutor, okay? Now, on occasion, what happens is that we mark, or we read the proposal, we give it a mark, and we give it an A because we think it's going to be really good. It goes back to the student, and then something changes, something beyond their control. All right, so they'd arranged interviews with 5 different companies, all the companies had agreed, and then suddenly they all changed their minds. And in those circumstances, maybe you do need to modify. All right, but probably what you'd find yourself doing is modifying some of the things. And again, that's not a problem at all. It's very rarely the case, if you engage in that interaction, that we would come back and we say, we don't think that'll work. All right, and it's only in those circumstances that you'd need to think about a different proposal. But as I said, I don't think that's ever occurred where there's been some sort of interaction, but I guess it could. Any other questions?